Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of my weekly legal presentation, Legalese, where I attempt to educate and explain to the consumer important issues that concern your insurance coverages and important things that you should know if you are ever involved or somebody you care about is involved in a motor vehicle accident. I'm attorney Chris DeBerry, and if you like what you hear today, please feel free to hit the like button. Also, feel free to share or comment below. I appreciate your comments and your criticisms. Often dedicate entire segments to those questions. In fact, today is such a time. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something very, very important. And I'm actually reminding you about something we've talked about before, which is uninsured motorist coverage. Now, uninsured motorist coverage provides coverage for insured persons who are legally entitled to recover damages from owners or operators of uninsured motor vehicles because of bodily injury, sickness, or disease, including death, which results from any of these. Now, I'm not making that up. I am reading that line for line from this form. This form is called the Uninsured Motorist Election Form, and it is a very, very important document. Anytime you take out a policy of automobile insurance or renew an existing policy, this document becomes a very, very important thing to you, because within this document is the power to accept valuable coverage at certain limits or to reject it. And let me explain a little bit about how that works. If you purchase uninsured motorist coverage, then you are purchasing the kind of insurance that you would need to have in the event that somebody who causes an accident, some other driver who causes an accident, injures you or a loved one, and your no-fault benefits are not adequate to cover the losses. And the other driver is not carrying bodily injury liability insurance. So if the other driver decides not to carry bodily injury insurance liability, which, as you know, because we've talked about it in the past, is not mandatory under Florida law, then you need to have this coverage. And that's why this document is so important. This document is handed to you with your policy documents when you apply for a new policy, and should be provided to you when you're renewing existing coverage. If not, request one from your insurance broker, or request one from an agent from the insurance company if you're ordering over the phone, or look for one online. And if you do not see it online, call and request one. It's very, very important that you carry uninsured motorist coverage. And if for some reason in the past you have rejected uninsured motorist coverage, reinstate it under your new policy when it renews. Make sure if you're purchasing a new policy that you include it. So when you read this document, it's going to have 5 questions it's asking you in order with a box next to each one of them, because you need to make a selection of these options. The first one indicates that you select what is called stacked uninsured motorist coverage with limits equal to those that you've selected for bodily injury liability. So let me explain how that works. When you purchase a policy of automobile insurance, because you're smart and because you've listened to my show in the past, you know that you want to purchase bodily injury liability in case you cause an accident and you cause harm to other people. And you want to make sure that you are covering, or you're carrying enough coverage to adequately protect you. I carry hundreds of thousands of dollars of bodily injury liability in case I cause an accident. So that's a very, very important thing to do, because if you don't have enough bodily injury liability to cover someone's damages, you could potentially lose your driver's license. Or, like I like to say, you are self-insured for any amount of insurance you don't carry. So if you carry bodily injury insurance, you are then eligible to carry uninsured motorist coverage. And like I indicated, this document gives you the option about how to approach how much uninsured motorist coverage you're going to carry and what type of uninsured motorist. And there are 2 types. There are stacked uninsured motorist and unstacked. Stacked uninsured motorist coverage means that you can take the amount of uninsured motorist coverage on one vehicle and stack it on every other vehicle included under the policy. That's a vehicle in your household. So suppose you wanted to carry 100,000, 300,000 bodily injury liability, and you wanted to carry 100,000, 300,000 uninsured motorist. Well, if you own 2 or 3 vehicles in your house and you stacked your UM coverage, then you would have the benefit of 300,000 or 200,000 or $300,000, depending on if it's 2 or 3 vehicles. In the event you are a class 1 insured, that's basically a relative residing in your household at the time of the accident and listed on the policy, would be entitled to that extra coverage. So stacking is going to multiply the amount of uninsured benefits that you have, uninsured motorist benefits that you have, times the number of vehicles you insured if you elect it. You can also choose to stack uninsured motorist coverage for an amount less than your bodily injury liability. So if you carry, say, 100,000, 300,000 bodily injury liability, you can elect to say, maybe I'll carry stacked UM of 50, 100, which if you multiply it times 3 vehicles for one person would be $150,000. And for 3 people would be $300,000 potentially. So that's if you choose stacked coverage. It'll stack times the number of the vehicles. However, you also have the option of choosing non-stacked coverage. So you may choose uninsured motorist coverage for individual vehicles on the policy, even at different amounts. So if you don't wish to stack them and multiply the single amount of coverage times 2 or 3 other vehicles, or however many vehicles you have under your policy, then you can go for non-stacked coverage. So the vehicles would be covered individual, and there would be no aggregate of the number of vehicles to compensate in case a class 1 insured gets in an accident in a vehicle that's under the policy. So you can also choose non-stacked vehicle for an amount less than your bodily injury liability limits, just as you can with stacked coverage. But those are the first 4 options. The last option, and this is the one that I advise you never to take, and that's legal advice I'm not afraid to give you right now, is where it says, I hereby reject both stacked and non-stacked uninsured motorist coverage. See it right there? Never, ever, ever check that box. Certainly don't do it before you consult with a reputable insurance agent and an attorney, because we're going to recommend that you include uninsured motorist coverage in any circumstance we're able to pay for it. And believe me, it's not that expensive. And if you're going to cut corners on, cutting corners on automobile insurance is never a good idea. And I'm not an auto insurance salesman, so I don't make money off selling policies. But I'm telling you, from my experience as a personal injury attorney, you don't want to be without this coverage. So, and that's really all I wanted to talk about today. It's just a small segment, but I just wanted to drive that point home because I was asked what kind of coverage should I carry to protect me in the event somebody else is not carrying bodily injury liability? And the answer is uninsured motorist coverage. And remember, you can have it stacked, which is stacked and equal to the amounts of your bodily injury liability. You can carry it stacked for an amount less than the bodily injury liability on your policy, which I don't really recommend. It's better than having nothing. You can carry non-stacked uninsured motorist coverage equal to the limits of your bodily injury liability, or you can carry non-stacked uninsured motorist coverage less than the limits of your bodily injury liability, which once again, I don't recommend. I recommend you get at least the amount, or get the amount equal to your bodily injury liability, and make sure you carry sufficient bodily injury liability. The last option is really not an option, which tells you I reject stacking and non-stacking uninsured motorist coverage. You never, ever, ever, say it again, ever want to reject that coverage, because if you do, you can be placing yourself or somebody you care about in tremendous jeopardy in the event you're involved in a motor vehicle accident and your no-fault benefits are not adequate to cover your medical needs. And oftentimes, particularly with the price of medical care these days, even under the no-fault fee schedule, is still potentially unaffordable and can break a family financially. This is one of those small things you can do to ensure that you're going to have what you need in the future. There are other things you can do, like carrying medical payment supplemental coverage on your no-fault policy, making sure you've got bodily injury liability in case you hurt somebody else. But this is really the big thing to do for you and your family. Make sure that you're carrying bodily injury liability. Make sure anytime you see a UM election form, you elect UM either stacked or unstacked. And that's very, very important. And remember that never, ever to reject the coverage. And if you have questions about insurance and need further information, please call me. You can reach me at 727-656-7852. You can reach me on my website at CDB Injury Law, and you can email me as well at chris@CDB Injury Law, because I'm here to answer your questions, and I want to make sure that you have what you're going to need to protect your family. It's very, very important coverage, particularly in the state of Florida, where they call full coverage nothing but no-fault benefits and mandatory property damage insurance, which is neither full coverage nor adequate coverage. You need coverage. So when you see this policy, when you see the rejection election form, when you take out a new policy or it's time to renew an old policy, make sure your old policy had what you need. Make sure that you had adequate uninsured motorist coverage under your old policy, because if you didn't, then you want to elect to include it in your new policy. It'll cost a couple extra dollars, but not even that much, to make sure that you have the coverage that you need. And folks, that is it. Thank you very much. So if you liked what you heard, please, I'm not going to say smash the like button. I hate that people smash the like button. It just sounds so violent, but assertively push the like button down. And please feel free to like, share, or comment on any of this information. And once again, I appreciate your comments and your criticisms. And I thank you very much for tuning in. Folks, have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.